and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down the madness, the insanity, the COVID protocol, it's Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's going on, Kyle? And yes, you said it right. This week has quite possibly topped any other week that I've experienced as somebody who's kind of working in the industry in terms of trying to keep tabs on who is hurt, who is on COVID, who's going to be out, who's going to clear protocol, how this is going to affect the game lines, which we're going to get into this here in a second. But Saturday has seen some pretty drastic line movement.
Yeah. So before we jump into anything, if you're enjoying the content, make sure you smash that thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed, please subscribe. We want to get to 300 subs before the end
Almost
of the year.
There.
And we're 10 away, I think. So if you can make that happen, we'd really appreciate that. And we are going to be recording an extra episode. We used to do like a preview show, kind of scrap that for the short time. And we're recording these Thursday and Saturday games. Obviously, with COVID and stuff, some of that stuff goes out the window. But for the most part, it's pretty useful stuff, especially as we typically record this Thursday night. So we can give you a lot more thoughts on the Thursday game, obviously get you a better number for Saturday. And then we'll be back for our normal best bet show. So Brian, as our industry resource and our guy who is your head is basically like in the injury report day in and day out. Let's talk about these games and let's kind of run through it, and we'll break it down kind of day by day. So we'll start with Saturday, where should we just start Browns Raiders, which I think is the craziest kind of information right now. So basically, this line opened up with the Browns as a 6.5 point favorite, and now you can get them anywhere between a 6.5 point favorite, and now they're at a 3.5 to 4.5 point underdog at home, depending on where you look. Obviously, Baker out, Case Keenum out. Nick Mullins' season is fully upon us. Obviously, injuries on the offensive line, the defensive line, or I guess COVID too, but talk to me about this game. What are we looking at? Like, who could we reasonably expect? I guess, more importantly, who's actually gonna play? Like,
as of right now, it's looking like the running back room is safe.
Okay,
because we haven't seen
Kareem Hunt is hurt though, right? Or is he back?
So Kareem Hunt is going to be out. So this is going to be a very heavy Nick Chubb. And if you can find them, I haven't been able to find them yet. Deante Johnson props this week should be looked at, considering that, like you said, this team is going to be without their top two quarterbacks. They're going to be without all three of their safeties this week. They're going to be down 2/5 of their starting offensive linemen who are out for COVID. They're going to be down 2/3 of their tight end room because of COVID. They're going to, like, it. You could just go on and on and on, and it just continues here with Cleveland. And there's no indication that this is going to stop on a daily basis. So we could get to Saturday and Cleveland is literally playing with backups at every single position.
Yeah. And I guess at that point, like,
honestly, I'm still leaning Browns getting the points at home, because this Raiders team is garbage. Like,
if I get Nick Chubb getting the volume, that's all I care about. Like, I know the offensive line won't be as great.
They're still good.
It's still the Raiders. It's still like I know, like, their pass rush is interesting. Their offense is okay, but outside of that game against your Cowboys on Thanksgiving, they have been just putrid offensively.
Well,
so I think it might be gross. It might not go well, but like 13-16 either way could feel like a very, very reasonable score. So if you're telling me I can get 4 or 4.5, depending on where you look, like, I'm writing that down. I know Nick Mullins has his question marks, but
this is going to be the ultra conservative. This is like playing NCAA 14 on.
This is Army Navy from Saturday.
And
they're
you're
just
running
gonna
the ball every
yeah.
game to just avoid mistakes.
Mhm.
And also too, there's a good chance that this is going to be pretty windy and rainy, so it's going to be
Yeah.
wet. So throwing the ball is going to be completely useless anyway.
Yeah,
So
I just run the triple option, put like Nick Chubb, Dearness Johnson, and like David Njoku or Donovan Peoples-Jones back there, and call it a day.
yeah, I would
Like
love that. That'd be
that would
great.
be a fun offense. I like that stuff. So yeah, so the Browns, like I know there's a lot going on, and I know they're going to be down a ton of people, but 10 and a half points is just too much of a move.
Yeah,
Like
and considering, remember, the Raiders don't have Darren Waller either, and
yeah,
outside of Hunter Renfrow, they haven't been able to get any consistent production out of any of their wide receivers
yeah, it's
minus
Josh
Waller.
Jacobs
So
and Hunter Renfro versus Nick Chubb. Like
yeah,
I'm
exactly. So
fine taking Nick Chubb plus the 3 or 4 points.
yep.
So
If this line continues to grow, I'm just going to continue to bet it. So
yep. Hopefully our friends over at Bovada can get their stuff together and figure it out, because there is a lot of opportunity.
yeah,
Um, let's talk about the other game on the slate, and from at least as of now, from what I've been seeing come out, expectations are everything is fine between New England and
yep,
Indy. Obviously, when we talked, we're both big fans of the Colts. I guess, a couple days removed, a couple days closer to Saturday. How are you feeling about that game? And kind of, where's your head at for Colts Pats?
So I've become even more of a fan of the Colts this week, kind of going into this game knowing that Indianapolis is extremely healthy. New England is kind of banged up. I mean, there's a good chance that Damian Harris doesn't play this week, which yes, I know
Ramondre Stevenson.
yeah, but I mean, New England operates better when they have that rotation of
Oh,
backs
for
in the
sure.
backfield. And if they have to force feed Stevenson, that's going to just pigeonhole exactly what Indy's able to do on defense. And coming into this game with Indy off of rest, their backfield is completely healthy. Their wide receiver core is completely healthy. Their offensive line got Ryan Kelly back this week after going on COVID. So I think that they're fully healthy. Like, all indications are that Indianapolis should be the favorite in this spot, and we should see the team that we kind of expected, in the trenches since the beginning of the season.
1,000%. The Colts are absolutely becoming the team that we expected
Yep.
to see from the jump. When healthy, they are an incredible team. I have already bet the Colts minus the 2. If it is interesting that it's still kind of hanging around 2.5. I think there is some concern, especially the way the Patriots have been playing lately, that if they hang a
Yeah.
3, they'll just get too much money, so they're just going to leave it. I think the under is very much in play here. At 46, I do worry that things get a little wonky and maybe the Colts score a few touchdowns or a touchdown late that kind of pushes it over. But if both teams want to lean on the running game,
Yeah.
it could be interesting. Although
I will say,
if Damian Harris is out, the Colts feel like Mac Jones can throw a little bit, or Patriots feel like Mac Jones can throw a little bit. I don't know.
see, so that's what I was going to say is as much as we've seen Indianapolis kind of open up the playbook a little bit more and start to take some deep shots with Carson Wentz, that's one thing that New England does really well against is scheming towards teams' strengths and kind of their like big play ability. And
Yeah.
I don't see the Colts being able to produce those big plays like they have of late. And so I think that, like you said, leaning the under in this spot, especially if you can still get it at 46, or even using this into a Saturday teaser leg where you're adding to Cleveland and getting them at a double-digit dog at home and
Yeah.
getting this at 52, 53 around. Like, I think that's the way to go here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think even like using the total as your first leg heading into Sunday could make some sense. Obviously, with
Yeah.
the bowl games too, there's
Oh yeah, there's
some interesting opportunities. So yeah, I'm 100% with you. How do we feel? Like we'll obviously talk prop bets here in a little bit, but Jonathan Taylor's rushing total at 93.5. Um, Depending on where you look, there's pretty even money. BetMGM has minus 118 on the under and minus 111 on the over. I know New England has been stout against the run, but I mean I feel like Jonathan Taylor's been just like performing so incredibly well. Even that game,
yep. I was just gonna say against the Bucks.
Against the Bucks, yeah, and
Yes.
they're an elite rush defense, and
Yes.
I took the over on his prop, and I did not feel good about it. And then he had one big drive where he got like 50 or 60 yards, and all of a sudden he's hit the over. So,
Well, that's what I was going to say too, is like this game will be played within a single possession almost the entirety of the game, in my opinion. So I think that Jonathan Taylor will see an uptick in usage. And as long as he's getting the volume upwards of 20 carries, there's no reason to think that he doesn't approach 100 yards in this game.
Yeah, I'm gonna add that right now.
Even as good as Belichick is at scheming against the team's strengths or best player.
Mm-hmm. I agree. As I add to my card, let's shift over our focus and talk Sunday. What teams are we monitoring for big COVID outbreaks? I know Washington is absolutely in the realm of outcomes.
Are you ready for this?
I'm ready. Give it to me.
Okay, so with Washington, they're going to possibly be missing their entire defensive line.
Yeah, there's a potential. I'm getting on a flight tomorrow. I'm going to play defensive tackle for Washington, right?
Minus Chase Young. He's the only one to avoid the list right now. They're down at least 2 starting defensive backs. So you got Washington dealing with stuff. Miami against the Jets. The Jets are today they placed Elijah Moore on the list, but he wasn't going to play anyways. But on the Miami side of the ball, they're down to Duke Johnson and some other guy I've never heard of in their backfield because their 4 running backs are on the COVID list. Salvin Ahmed, Myles Gaskin, and the newly acquired Phillip Lindsay.
Yep.
Jalen Waddle was added to the COVID list today. So you got Miami dealing with that. The Giants are missing multiple defensive backs, Kadarius Toney. The Bears, Allen Robinson, Eddie Jackson, Jesse James, 2 offensive linemen, 2 starting defensive linemen for Chicago. COVID is like attacking everyone.
And it's wild too because we spent like 90% of the season sailing through it. And now like some plague, it's just coming for all the teams. And of course, the NFL isn't going to shut down the season. No, they got to make their money. So.
I was just going to say too, also a team of note to keep an eye on tomorrow. So Arizona, they had 2 offensive linemen. One guy left practice early and one didn't practice with an illness, Justin Pugh. Shortly after practice, they put Rodney Hudson, their starting center, on the COVID list. Now, keep an eye on this because Arizona is already going to be without DeAndre Hopkins. And if you see their offensive line get riddled with COVID, already with James Conner banged up, Chase Edmonds.
Yeah, what's Conner's situation? Is he?
I think he's posted 2 consecutive DNPs in practice, so it's not looking good for this week. Yeah. And if Edmonds is not ready, this is Eno Benjamin
season. Let's go, man! This is Kyle's week to thrive.
I was just gonna say this is the week for everyone who's like in fantasy who wants those like lower.
Yeah, I would love to roll out an Eno Benjamin, Nick Mullins.
Yeah, exactly. Duke Johnson for Miami might be the leading running back.
So let's talk. Yeah, so let's talk about that game because that line is up to 9.5. It was like 5 or 6 in the beginning of the week.
Yeah, I don't understand the movement in this game.
I know the Jets stink, but like,
yeah, I really do worry about Miami's ability to move the ball, especially if Waddle is out. I know they'll have Devontae Parker's healthy.
Parker's back to
but
Gesicki.
The thing is that for as bad as the Jets are, like they have shown signs, like I don't know what it is. I could be blinded by my kind of like semi love for the Jets.
Yeah,
but they could create some problems for a Miami offense who has nobody out of the backfield whatsoever and just a single wide receiver on the outside in Parker, if that is the case. Yeah. And so this line to me has gotten inflated too much, and it's not one that I'd be touching at this current number.
I think there's going to be some opportunities for some overreactions. You might get burned and might get dump trucked in a game or two, but like there is going to be between the Eagles game now that's now up to 10, the Dolphins Jets, which is now 9.5, 10. your Cowboys, which is flirting with 11. There's gonna be some opportunities, some good spots for teasers.
Honestly, I think the most intriguing game for me with the line movement, the way that it's gone, though, has to be in Jacksonville with the Jaguars punting on Urban Meyer. Something, I mean, we could all agree is not very surprising whatsoever. But the Jaguars are a 4.5-point favorite.
They're a 5-point
5-point
favorite some
favorite in most
places.
markets.
Yeah, I'm taking the Texans +5.
Like, are you kidding me?
Jaguars aren't good enough to beat anybody to be favored by 5 against anybody.
That said, I will possibly be having the Jaguars on my card as a money line bet, depending off if I can get this to go lower by the end of the week, because I do think that Jacksonville can win this game because their defense has played good. That said, they ain't covering against Houston. That is way too big.
Yeah, no, I like I said, there's gonna be some serious opportunities here with some really good teams. Denver minus the 2.5 against Cincinnati. I don't like. We've talked about Denver a little bit and how they kind of like they're a team that beats not very good teams and then has trouble with the good teams. Are the Bengals good? Like, do we think they're good? I mean, I watched them go toe to toe with the Niners, and they had moments where they didn't look great, but I think they also showed flashes. And I'm a little higher on the Niners than most people, but that was impressive to me.
See, that's the thing for me is like there are too many Jekyll and Hyde teams this year. Like Cincinnati being a perfect example of that. One game they come out and they look like world beaters and they're going to win the AFC North, and then they come and they put up a couple stinkers in a row and the offense can't find itself. Jamar Chase is back dropping passes. Like which Bengals team is going to show up and playing in Mile High, not a place that's easy to play at. Denver, for everything, for all of their limitations on offense and just their lack of talent, I guess, even on defense. I mean, after Von Miller and all them left, they play sound football, and this is a spot where it could be, close the entire game and come down to field goals. And honestly, as good as Evan McPherson's been for Cincinnati, I'm not taking a guy who kicked at Florida over Brandon McManus, who has been kicking in Denver his entire career. So, I mean, that 3, if you get it under 3 and you like Denver, I wouldn't fault people for taking that.
Yeah, and the total sitting at 44.5 is interesting. This could be a game where obviously the Broncos want to run as much as possible.
Oh, yeah.
And Cincinnati could look to lean on Joe Mixon a little bit. Obviously, the Bengals offense, like I keep waiting for it to completely explode, and they have the horses to make it happen. It just hasn't really.
Well, they don't have the offensive line either, so I mean that's really coming back to bite them in the ass right now.
I want to back Seattle against the Rams.
Okay, so Seattle, one more team, COVID, Tyler Lockett and Alex Collins, and watch out, DK Metcalf also did not practice today.
Yeah,
and we're awaiting news on him. So
yeah, I have a feeling like we could wake up tomorrow and that's 7.5 or 8, and then so I'm not betting that, and I think that's kind of my like if I feel like even with a couple like you said, Alex Collins, Tyler Lockett, I'm gonna be patient with it and look for opportunities. I might be a little more Sunday morning firing off shots or Saturday night, like being a lot more patient, a lot more flexible, because like obviously I want to get the best of the number, but if the best of the number ends up not being that good of a number because half the teams got COVID and all of a sudden that number's doubled, then you're not feeling great about it. So
well, especially too, I wanted to hit on this real quick. So the NFL changed their guidelines for vaccinated players returning.
Of course they did.
So anybody started today, retroactive to the beginning of today, anybody who went on the COVID list who's vaccinated and is asymptomatic, all they have to do is test negative once, and they can be reactivated the day before their game. So all of these lines, they could potentially shift a couple points. We got
to find out vaccination statuses of all these players.
It's getting ridiculous, man, and it's really difficult going into this Sunday trying to bet these games.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk some numbers. Let's talk some games we're actually going to bet. When I saw my Titans were favorites, I was a little worried, but I don't know that I trust Pittsburgh at all. Talk about Jekyll and Hyde teams. Like they
Yeah.
are Jekyll and Hyde quarter to quarter, let alone
I
game
was
to
just gonna
game.
say within a single game,
Um,
yeah.
and the Titans are getting healthier. They actually have some semblance of NFL players on the field. Their offensive line is still a question mark, and Roger Saffold is injured basically every other quarter. So I'm a little worried that their defense, Steelers D line, is going to attack them. But with this game basically being a pick 'em, a half point either way, a point either way, I kind of want to ride with my boys. I'm not going to bet it because I can't bet on my own teams, but it does feel like a good opportunity with a team that I think is actually really good.
Yeah, this is an interesting line because obviously they're thinking that Tennessee's a better team. Going into Pittsburgh is never easy to win, but
Yeah.
Tennessee is built and they run a style that travels anywhere they play. And
Yeah.
even if it's not Derrick Henry back there, the combination of Dontrell Hilliard and Deonta Foreman looks to be adequate for their rushing attack. And now that they have Julio back, he should see more playing time this week. Pittsburgh may be getting a few guys back on defense. TJ Watt practice, so he's possibly returning. But I mean,
Yeah.
they have not been the Steelers' defense of old.
No.
And I mean, we saw them last week get absolutely gashed on the ground by Minnesota.
Yeah, and there's
So
a possibility Bud Dupree comes back this week, which would be
yeah,
huge. Like to see him get a nice revenge game. I'm hoping Zach Cunningham is available. That would be a huge upgrade to the
yes,
offensive line. A player that has already played for Mike Vrabel, so there's a good connection there. A lot of understanding. I know there was some sort of weird fallout with Houston, but I think that's more of a Houston thing than a Zach Cunningham thing. Or maybe I'm just trying to convince myself. Beyond that, what games on Sunday are garnering the most interest from you? On ones you may actually pull the trigger and make some bets on.
Well, I mean, I'm going to admit right now, looking at this Sunday slate, it was kind of disgusting and almost made me want to barf just knowing what's happening right now with COVID. So, like, my card is pretty short right now. It'll definitely grow as we get closer. But right now, like, I'm going back to the well with the Jets team total. I mean, it's currently set at 15.5. They have nothing on offense. Their running back room is a couple of throwaways and a practice squad guy.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson looks completely lost. Miami's defense is playing like the defense again, very similar to what we were talking about with the Colts that we thought we were going to see out of Miami. And I don't think that they're going to get anywhere near 15.5. I think Miami controls this clock and keeps the Jets out of the end zone. The other game is Washington. If they're minus Terry McLaurin, they're already minus Logan Thomas. Antonio Gibson is still kind of banged up. Philadelphia, they're not going to be throwing the ball a ton. They don't do that. They're probably going to run it 50 times. I don't think Washington has the offense to muster 16 points, so I'm taking their team total under 16.5 as well.
Yeah, no, I think those both make sense, and I think that's a good way to attack this slate. Is not worry about what one team's the points being scored. I would just worry about taking point. I would look at totals. I would look at team totals. Like I'm looking up the Lions right now because I think that's a great spot. Hawkinson had surgery. He's done. No DeAndre Swift most likely. It's Jared Goff and a bunch of scrubs. And Arizona's dealing with injuries and whatnot, but most of that's on the offensive side, not the defensive side.
Very condensed game plan for Arizona too,
exactly.
keeping the clock rolling.
So maybe you don't love that 14-point spread, but if you could find a spot on the team total, I'm trying to find it. DraftKings and their team totals are not easy to find.
No, they probably have the worst when it comes to that.
They have team totals, but then it's like second half, first half, second half. I don't want any of that stuff. Total touchdowns, like Detroit under 1.5 touchdowns plus 105. I don't hate that. I could see them kicking a ton of field goals. Here we go. Total points 16.5. The over
for
is
Detroit
juiced. Yes.
Oh yeah, I'm
you
taking
can get minus 105.
I'm adding that to my card.
Arizona, Detroit under 16.5. I will take that.
That's going in there.
Thank you very much. I'll let you put that on, and then I'll add it to my sheet in a bit. Let's go down, look at some team totals with Denver and Cincinnati. Let's see here. So we're looking at 20.5 for Cincinnati, 23.5 for Denver. I don't mind under 23.5 for Denver. They'd have to get 24. I mean, I know they looked all right last week, but I think that was more of last week and less about Denver as a whole. But maybe just less Melvin Gordon's a good thing for everybody.
Well, as a matter of fact, it might actually be more Melvin Gordon this week with Javonte Williams apparently had a leg issue pop up.
Oh, perfect.
So
why would you want good things to happen to interesting
exactly? It's
running
Christmas
backs?
time.
So
We're supposed to get nice stuff. But
let's see here. So I will take that then if that's the case. I'll take the under 23.5 for Denver against Cincinnati. I will add that right now.
Yeah, this week's slate is probably as difficult a one as we've seen of recent weeks. Just because of the large lines, the uncertainty with COVID going on right now.
Yep.
It's going to be a really difficult, slate to bet, and probably one that you are going to wait until Sunday.
Yep, that's why I flipped over and I'm looking at the NCAA odds. I like Coastal Carolina, I like Western Kentucky. I like Liberty's interesting. Malik Willis supposed to play, but that's neither here nor there. Brian, why don't you hit him with your Week 15 teaser?
All right, again, this is it's funny that Kyle was talking about the Lions team total because that game, I included that in my teaser. It's currently set at about 46.5, 47, depending on where you're getting that at. So I'm teasing that up 6 points, taking that under there. There's no way that Detroit is going to contribute anything in this matchup. And Arizona dealing with the injuries to Hopkins, possibly their offensive line. I think that they're also going to be, very, very cautious with their game plan. Just try to get out of this game with a win and not put too many people at risk here. So that one's going under 53. I got it at Cincinnati. I like them in this spot to cover a larger number. So I'm teasing them up from the 2.5 or 3, depending on what book, up to 8.5 or a 9. I think that this game is played really close to the cuff. Denver cannot run away from anybody, especially the Bengals.
Yeah.
And then this is an interesting one I'm going with here. So the Texans and the Jaguars, yes, both of them are putrid. They're horrible. I like what I've seen out of Houston's offense of late against good teams. And now that Jacksonville doesn't have Darrell Bevel, I think we see their offense get a little bit more efficient. It's not, we hate James Robinson, so get out of here. So I'm teasing this number down from 39.5 to 33.5 and taking the over in this spot. I think an NFL game to get to 34 points should be doable for two NFL.
Yeah, we saw it a couple times. I want to say week like 11 or 9 or something where there was two totals that were right around 40. And if you blindly bet both of them, you hit the over. So I like that call.
And also, too, of note for this matchup, Houston just put 2 starting defensive backs on the COVID list. So if they're not able to return, this could be Trevor Lawrence's breakout game.
I don't hate Trevor Lawrence, and as a matter of fact, I have a spot where I have Jalen Hurts. I have some DraftKings lineups I'm putting together, and stacking up Trevor Lawrence with some Laquan Treadwell.
I was just going to say Laquan Treadwell.
There's some opportunity there.
So if you can get props on this game for this passing offense, I think Trevor Lawrence's passing yards is somewhere near 200, and then Treadwell is set at under 40 yards on. This is over on Prize Picks, so I don't know what you could get over on like actual betting sites. But I'm definitely leaning the over in that spot. And then for my last one, this is such a hard game because New Orleans always plays Tampa Bay so tough. The number is huge at double digits, but I'm teasing this down to 5 or 4.5, whatever. I think Tampa Bay should win this game. New Orleans has nothing on offense. They're going to be forced to throw, and
they're cooked.
We saw what that looked like with Taysom Hill. So, yeah, I like Tampa to possibly cover the big number, but getting this at underneath a touchdown, I'll take that every day.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it because that could get wonky, especially based on history. But New Orleans is not the team that.
New Orleans doesn't have anything other than Kamara, and he's not going to score 6.
They don't have Michael Thomas and Drew Brees and all those guys running out there.
So just to recap, the four leg 6-point teaser this week is going to be Cardinals at Lions under 53. Bengals teasing that up to about 8.5, 9, depending on where you get it. Texans and Jaguars teasing this number down and taking the over, and then teasing the Bucks down and taking them to cover the line.
I like it. I like it a lot. Let's talk some player props before we get up with our best bets and get out of here. I have 2 so far. I have, as I mentioned, Jonathan Taylor. Playing with tabs here. Over 93.5. I think he can get to close to 100. Deante Foreman against the stinky Pittsburgh defense. Pulling it up right now. His rush yards is 52.5. I will take the over on that. Obviously, he's not Dalvin Cook, but I don't think he's going to get 200 yards either. I think he can get over 52.5. That is incredibly compelling to me. I don't think there's any props out yet, but I will be paying attention to Rashad Bateman if Tyler Huntley is the quarterback. Lamar Jackson doesn't want to throw him the ball for some reason or another, but if Tyler Huntley is the quarterback, I think he could have a nice game here. What do you think about the Cowboys? I think this is a nice spot for them to break out. I think they could have a big game. I'm just trying to figure out who I want to target.
This is such a weird game because what is this offense right now? Like last week against a porous Washington pass defense.
Yeah, but they got up huge and then kind of like stopped doing stuff. Like Dalton Schultz over 36.5 looks interesting. CeeDee Lamb over 72.5. As a matter of fact, I'm taking both of those. I would like a Gallup prop if they could give me those, but I don't see that. I'm not touching Amari Cooper. He could have 1,000 yards. He could have nothing.
I was just going to say, he's
no
like the most boomer bust guy for them.
So yeah, I will be adding Dalton and CD. I think this is a good week to target the Cowboys. I think they bounce back against a poor Giants defense. And I think the Giants weirdly might be able to do enough just to make it where the Cowboys want to do stuff. So
yeah, that's the thing is like, I mean, it's the divisional game. It's in New York. This is not a place where the Cowboys fans are going to travel. This is going to be a Giants home field advantage. And even if it's Mike Glennon's starting, Saquon seems to be back. I don't know.
He's looking not great. It's
honestly, Devin Booker looks like the better runner at the moment, just because of all the injuries Saquon's dealt with. He's just not finding the holes as quick. But I do think they could ugly it up enough to keep it close early. So the double-digit line is hard for me to get on with the Cowboys, and because they're my team, I'm not including them.
100%.
Yeah, they terrify me.
Okay. All right. Well, let's recap. Let's hit a best bet and let's get out of here. For me, I have the Colts -2.5. I have the Browns +4.5. I added Washington and Philly under 44. I think there's a lot of running there. I don't, even with the poor Washington defense, I still think it's a game where the Eagles want to sit on the ball, especially if Hurts is a little more banged up than they're letting on. I will take the Texans +5. Against Houston. I will take under 23.5 for the Denver team total. For my props, I got Jonathan Taylor over 93.5. I have rushing yards. I have Deante Foreman over 52.5 rushing yards. I have Dalton Schultz over 36.5 receiving yards. I have CeeDee Lamb over 72.5 receiving yards, and I will be looking for Rashad Bateman props and tweet them out accordingly.
Nice. Yeah. So my player props, I got one that I am going to be betting pretty heavily is Alvin Kamara's receptions number is set at 4.5. This is going to be a game that New Orleans is going to be trailing. Alvin Kamara is clearly their best player on offense. Taysom Hill is going to have to lean on him all day, all game, every play. So any touch numbers, total yards are a little bit more worrisome for Kamara because they kind of bottle him up. But as far as like rush attempts and catches, I think Kamara is going to get all of those overs. And then whenever the Trevor Lawrence and Laquan Treadwell props drop, I will be betting those overs as well.
Yeah, I like those quite a bit. I also just looked. Deante Johnson's receptions is 6.5. It's
He's been in like
heavily
every game this
it's
year or
heavily
something.
juiced on DraftKings, but I love that. I also like his receiving yards, which is at
It was like
78 and a half.
78 and a half.
I,
Yeah.
I hate I always tell myself, Kyle, don't bet overs. But I think for this spot, it makes a lot of sense. Bad secondary that, while they're getting better, still has their issues against a receiver who it just sees volume. Like Deante Johnson is basically 10 targets a game unless he gets like 9.
Yeah.
So to get a number at 6.5, I think makes a lot of sense.
I'm
If you
kind of
can get
disappointed looking at the Steeler Titans game that they don't have a longest reception prop for Chase Claypool. It's like the
Yeah,
books
I think
know he goes
I
deep.
think that will trickle out as we get closer to Sunday. But yeah, I think people like him and MVS and
Yeah.
big play receivers, Amari Cooper too, who could, catch a 70-yard bomb. If you can get their number at 35, 40, 45, I think there's some really good opportunity to hit some nice props there. You don't have to worry about them getting a ton of volume. You don't have to worry about them catching everything. You just got to worry about one play and one play
Yep.
only, and that's it. Um, all right, Brian, we talked some props. We talked your teas. We talked some game lines. I guess the only thing left is, what's your best bet for week number 15?
I hate doing this, but I gotta pick on them again. That's gonna be the Jets team total under 15.5, man.
Right
have a
until it
hard
bucks you.
I have a hard time believing they're gonna be able to do much this week against Miami.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Colts. That's been my favorite pick since the lines were posted. I've been notoriously against the thinking Tampa or New England was any good. Like they're fine. They're a good team. Like they're
Man,
not.
you are such a hater.
Yeah, they're just. I don't know. I don't. I'm not believing it, and maybe I'll look like an idiot. And I've lost. I keep losing, so I keep going to the well with that. But I think this is the first real offense they've played in weeks, and the first real team they played in weeks. And that
Yeah.
includes my Titans, who, when they showed up to play against New England, were a shell of the team that they used to be. They played Buffalo in a windstorm. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm
Well,
making
and
more
we talked
excuses
about it.
than I
The
should, but
Bills should have won that game.
yeah, they had 2 drives inside the 20, and they
Yeah.
came in with 0 points. Like, that
I mean,
can't
coulda, woulda,
happen.
shoulda, but
Yep. Yeah. Well, and maybe that's New England doing their thing, but I still think the Colts win. I think they win comfortably, but I've also heard that from a few different spots, and Brian's on board, so that's
yeah,
never a positive
never
sign.
a
So
good
I'm
thing,
sure I'm
man.
sure it'll go horribly,
Uh,
horribly wrong, but
yeah.
nonetheless, once again, if you've made it this far, really, really appreciate you. Drop your favorite bets for the weekend
Yes.
slate. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell notification. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. We'll be back next week with 2 more shows, and we'll talk to y'all next time.